turn your devices off, that would be great. There's also 3 restrooms on premises. There's one here by the stage you probably don't want to use during the show. Your call. The other 2 are behind the store and up the stairs. Most of you know we're a nonprofit. That's probably why you're here. You know we had some break-ins. And we are just so very grateful for Ken and the Guild for pulling this together, and for all of you for showing up. This is just amazing with the amount of notice that we had. So give yourselves a hand. And I'm not going to talk a lot, but I'm going to ask Ken to come up because a little birdie dropped something off for him that he needs to open. And then I'll let him introduce everyone else. Thank you.
There's a fifth in here. Well, thanks for coming, folks. Good afternoon. I'm Ken Iverson. I'm the president of the Portland Storytellers Guild. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Making a Difference. And as Shelley said, thank you so much for being here. This is a benefit for Artichoke Music put on by the Portland Storytellers Guild. As storytellers, we believe that every story we tell can make a difference. Maybe it's a smile on someone's face, or maybe it's a new way of thinking about something in their life. Each song and each story carries that power to enchant, to entice, to create change, or maybe just to have some fun. Do you remember that wonderful song, Hello, Mudda, Hello, Fada? Alan Sherman brought us a lot of laughs. Or Johnny Cash with A Boy Named Sue. So sometimes we just have fun, but other times we do create change. Artichoke Music's history is filled with stories and songs. Storytellers have been on the Artichoke stage over the years. I've been on, several of my friends have been on. But now, this is the first time when it's a regular part of their schedule. And we in the Portland Storytellers Guild are delighted that we get to call Artichoke Cafe home. This is where we do our monthly shows, and we couldn't be happier. So thank you to Shelley, to Christopher, to Gary, to all the people at Artichoke that make these shows possible. Can we give them a hand? You know, my own history with Artichoke began before I ever put one foot through the door, ever stepped inside. In June, Artichoke celebrated its 50th anniversary. That, I think, is incredible. Now, in July, my wife Carolyn and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. Thank you. When I met my wife, my future wife, in Palo Alto, California, my hometown, she was living with a few other people while they went to college. And I was in her room one morning, and I heard someone singing. It was such a beautiful voice. I went out to the living room. I wanted to see who was on the record that was on the stereo. But when I walked into the living room, there was a young woman just sitting there, singing a cappella. I couldn't believe it. Her voice was so beautiful. She was one of my fiance's roommates. Her name was Judith Cook. She is the founder of Artichoke Music. Well, Judith and her fiance, Glenn Tucker, and my wife, Carolyn, and I, we all hung out together a lot. They were at our wedding. But once we got married, we moved away. We kept touch, but we were never close enough to visit, never close enough to reconnect and to see them until Artichoke Music celebrated 50 years. And Judith Cook Tucker came up from the Bay Area. I will honestly never forget the squeal of delight when she was sitting just about there, and I walked up to her and leaned in, and she looked at me like, "Who's this?" And I said, "I'm Ken Iverson." She jumped up, big hugs, reached around me, got hold of my wife, gave her a hug. It was all happened because a community had come together to celebrate what had been started when Judith opened that little music store in Northwest Portland and named it Artichoke Music 50 years ago. All that gift was from the community. Artichoke Music has been in good hands over the years. And seeing all of you here today just tells me it still is. I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for caring, for supporting Artichoke, and supporting also the Portland Storytellers Guild, but we're really here focused on Artichoke. I think Shelley already said it, but if you would, please turn off your phones. She told you where the restrooms were, so that's all covered. So welcome to Making a Difference. You will hear from 6 storytellers. There'll be 4 telling, and then a 10-minute intermission, then 2 more tellers to wrap up the show. And today you'll be hearing from Norm Brecky, here, Barb Finkhauser, Eric Foxman, Rick Huddle, Gretchen Peterson, and myself, and I'm still Ken Iverson. I get the pleasure of telling the first story. I used to live in San Francisco. I lived right near Golden Gate Park, which was beautiful. But I had to walk those city streets getting to work, and every day, those buses, stinky and loud. The city noise was around me 24/7. I got a letter from my uncle. "Dear Ken, why don't you come and spend your next vacation on my farm? 2 weeks out of the city would do you good." I wrote back and said, "I'll be there." And when my vacation came, I wasted no time in getting out of the city and getting to Uncle Bob's farm. We spent that first night sitting on his porch, enjoying hot coffee, sharing old memories, reconnecting. And I just gazed up at that sky in wonder, seeing stars in the way that you can never see them in a city. In the morning, I got up and went out front. I decided to follow the dirt road that went past his farm and just see how far it went, how far I could go. As soon as I started walking, though, I looked, and there, right across from Uncle Bob's farm, his neighbor's farm, the field had been freshly mowed. I probably stood there for 5 minutes, just breathing in that air. It smelled so good. I walked down the road, and it seemed like every farm I passed, out on the porch of the farmhouse, there would be people, and they'd be waving, and I'd wave back. I thought, this is a friendly place. Everyone's saying hi. Well, I walked on down that road, and I came to one farmhouse, and there was a sign out front. It caught my eye. I walked up closer because I couldn't quite read it from the road. For sale, talking dog. I thought that farmer's fooling people, but it made me think, I wish I had a dog. Oh, if I had a dog, living in the city would be so much nicer, and we could go to Golden Gate Park and walk every day. Next thing I knew, I was up on the porch, and the farmer came out. "Yeah, can I help you?" "I think I'm interested in your dog, sir." "But what do you mean, for sale, talking dog?" "Well, it's pretty simple. It's a dog. It's for sale. And it talks." No offense, but you and I both know dogs don't talk. And he looked at me with a look I'll never forget. He said, "I used to think that too." He's on the porch out back. You go take a look. If you're interested, come back. We'll talk. He shut the door. So I made my way around the back of the farmhouse, and there on the porch was an old hound dog. An old hound dog. I looked at him. I went around where I get a better look, and without meaning to out loud, I just said, not much to look at. Suddenly, the dog, who I thought was asleep, was apparently awake. One ear went up, then the other. He stood up, or sat up, looked at me. Yeah, talking dog. You know, boy, that farmer up front, he told me you could talk. He told you? Oh, boy. Well, that lets the puppy out of the kennel, don't it? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. Dogs don't talk. My pappy always said, humans just don't listen. Well, if you're talking, if you can really talk, what are you doing here? Retired. And by the way, you're not much to look at yourself, sport. Dogs don't retire. You see, people, we work, and then we retire, not dogs. Did you ever work? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 35 years with the agency. Well, five-year years. 35 of mine. What agency would hire a dog? It was the CIA. We prefer to just call it the agency. You work for the CIA? Agency, please. See, my pappy worked for the agency. Oh, yeah. And when I was born and they found out I could talk, they put me right into their covert canine crusader candidate camp. Started training me. I graduated 6C, certified crypto-capable covert canine crusader. Well, what'd you do? Well, mostly I was a spy. What did you do? Well, I would go with diplomats, see? And I would go into a room, a meeting with them. And then I'd lay down like I was sleeping, but I wasn't. The diplomat would excuse themselves and go to the restroom, and when they left the room, all the other diplomats would start sharing the secrets they didn't want the United States to know. Then after the meeting, when we got back home, I could tell them everything they'd said. So, well, that's amazing. Do you have a name? Oh yeah, Fred. It's a government issue name. Acronym, actually. It means faithful, reasonably educated dog. See, I failed small arms training, so they just taught me linguistics and code. My gosh. Well, why would you retire if you could do that? You must have traveled all over the world. I did. I traveled everywhere. I tell you what, you cannot get good dog food on the road. You just can't. Plus, I wanted a family. And when I wanted a family, the agency very nicely agreed to transfer me into the wonderfully co-ed Covert Canine Crusaders consensual cohabitation community. That was nice. That's where I met my girlfriend. Oh, the farmer came and adopted us. See, the building looked just like an animal shelter. He didn't know we were all ex-CIA and could talk. Well, my wife and I came here, had a couple litters. Oh, the kids all growing. They're off on other farms now. And, well, a little while ago, my wife went to canine heaven. That's when things started going downhill with the farmer. At first, he invited me in. I'd sit on the couch next to him, and we'd watch reruns of Lassie. Good stuff. I liked it. But then he put on Jeopardy. That was my downfall. I watch it. I try and contain myself, but I couldn't. Next thing I knew, I was jumping up and down on the couch, jumping up and down, and then I shouted out the answer. Oh, that's when he learned I could talk. That set him back a good bit. Yeah, he never recovered from that. He said I ruined Jeopardy for him for life. I think it was just that I knew more answers than he did. Well, we started watching other things, but it was hard because he wanted to watch Green Acres. I wanted to watch Homeland. And I couldn't stand the channel hopping, so I set the TV for Homeland, buried the remote, hid it. He found it. Then he invited me to move out here on the porch till he could find another place for me to live. Well, you know, everything you're describing, I'd love to have you. I'd love to have a dog at home in the city. I would live across from a park. We could walk every afternoon, but Sundays might be tough for you. See, Sundays I like to just settle in with the New York Times. Oh, crosswords. You like crosswords? Oh, I love crosswords. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know Will Short, that crosswords genius with the New York Times? He's with the agency. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he taught me how to do crosswords. Oh, Will sends out secret messages all over the world in his crosswords. Nobody knows. Oh, we love it. Oh, I want to go home with you. I'd like to have you come home with me. But we'll see. Let's go talk to the farmer. We went back up front and saw the farmer. Said, I want to buy the dog. You're right. He does talk. Not only that, he's ex-CIA. What do you want for him? Yeah, I don't know. Would you go as high as $10? Oh, yeah. I reached for my wallet, then I went, wait a minute. Something's fishy here. You got a talking dog and you're going to sell him to me for $10? Yeah. Is there something wrong? Oh, yeah. There's something wrong with that dog. You should know that by now. He can talk. That's pretty amazing, I admit. But I'm warning you, he can't stop talking. He ruined Jeopardy for me completely. I'll never be able to watch it again. Plus, I mean, look at him. Ex-CIA? You can't believe a word that dog says. Well, if that's all, here's your $10. I'll take them. See, I live in the city, and friends come over every week to watch Jeopardy. And we compete, and we get excited. We jump up, we shout out the answers. He's going to fit right in. Come on, Fred, my faithful, reasonably educated dog. Let's go home. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now you know Will Short's true job. Please welcome to the microphone, Eric Foxman.
He's so much taller than me. So, those of you who know me know I grew up in Manhattan, in New York City. I went to high school there, and my best friend lived in this small apartment building. It was 8 stories, 2 apartments on each floor. And for me, really the best thing about the apartment building was that my friend Peter lived there. But the second best thing was 2 floors up was the home of Judy Collins. Judy Collins. I was enamored with Judy Collins. I loved her voice. I loved the way she sang. I loved the songs that she sang. I knew all the words to all the songs on her first 5 albums. And one song in particular was called Marat Sade. Every time I heard it, I was totally astounded. Every single time. And there were lots of reasons, but I'll give you just 2 of them. The first 4 lines she delivers with incredible energy and emotion and strength, and she does it all on one breath. And for a 14, 15, 16-year-old, I found that absolutely amazing. And then the next 2 lines, which is a bridge to the next part, well, they end with a word that, well, for those of you who know Judy Collins and know her songs like Suzanne and Michael from Mountains and her own composition, My Father, these songs that are filled with these incredible lyrical, tender words, these 2 lines end with a word that I just could not believe came out of her mouth. And for those of you who don't know the song Marat Sade, it begins like this. 4 years after the revolution and the old king's execution, 4 years after the Bastille fell, he still recalls that old battle yell. Down with all of the ruling class, throw all the generals out on their ass. Every time I heard it, I knew the word was coming, but every time I was shocked. However, this story is not about Judy and me. By the way, Judy and I, we were on a first-name basis. That's not exactly true. Maybe I should say that Judy was on a first-name basis with me, but since she and I never met in the 4 years that I went and visited Peter in his apartment building, she didn't know I existed, so it might be appropriate to say that I was on a no-name basis with her. But this story is about my friend Peter and I. And Peter and I were both really good students. We were at the top of our class, and he excelled with anything that had to do with literature, poetry, creative writing, composition. He had an incredible gift with words. My strength was numbers. I was really good in mathematics and sciences. And so although we were at the top of the class and equal with each other, we never competed with each other. We were in the high school chorus, and we had different voices. One was a tenor, one was a baritone. We never competed for solos. We were on the softball team, but we played very different positions. We never competed with each other that way either. We did a lot of dramatic pieces together, and quite frankly, we helped each other become better actors. And I certainly know that Peter made me a much better actor. After school, we'd go to Central Park and we'd do things together. We'd go to museums, we'd go to the library. A number of times a year, we'd go to off-Broadway plays together. And every couple of months, 15 or 20 of us from school would get together on a Saturday night, and we'd have a party, and we often played charades. And I want to tell you about one particular Saturday. We get there, and we had this thing. We would just pull names out of the hat, and we would randomly then end up in two different teams. And the theme for this particular Saturday's charades was titles. It could be the title of a book, a theatrical production, a song, or a film. And we also had this thing, and I don't know how many of you have played charades and how you ended up doing it, but we would total up the time from all the rounds, and whichever team had the lowest time aggregate would have bragging rights, at least until the next time we played charades, when the teams would be totally different. And so this particular night, we're playing, and we're about the 8th round, and Peter, who's on the other team, his team is doing really, really well. They're getting the clues like in 2.5 to 3 minutes. The longest they took was just over 5 minutes. My team is not doing nearly as well. We're taking 4 to 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes. We even had one that was just short of 8 minutes. And so we knew by the end of 8 rounds out of the 10, there was no way that we were going to win. It was the year of the Loving Spoonful on the air with If You Believe in Magic. Well, it didn't matter. Magic wasn't going to help us. We needed a miracle, but not magic. But our 9th player, Kim, puts her hand in the hat, pulls out one of the last 2 slips of paper, looks at it, and her face becomes full of despair. And this despair turns to desperation and depression. I got all those D's in there that time. And we're kind of looking at her, and she just keeps reading it over and over and over again. And then she calls for a huddle, which gives her an opportunity to talk with the other team where the clue had come from. And that would be, maybe she didn't know whether it was a book or a film, or maybe she couldn't understand what one of the words was. And believe me, if Peter had written that particular one, it would certainly be difficult to read, because in the entire history of humanity, it's a proven fact that Peter is the only person who was ever born with doctor's handwriting. Or maybe she didn't know, what one of the words meant, or more importantly, perhaps what it sounded like, how you would pronounce it, because she might want to, sounds like in charades. And while they're doing that, my team is huddling together also, and we're giving ourselves pep talks. You know, we're going to get this one. This is going to be really easy. It ain't over till it's over. Every single platitude that we could possibly think of. And while we're doing that, I happen to look over and I see Peter, and he's got this huge grin on his face. I almost thought it was like a devilish grin, but I realized somebody over there must have told a joke, and it must have been really, really funny. And I know that Peter will share it with me sometime in the next week or so. Kim comes back. She stands in front of us, and there's this huge sigh. And then she takes a big breath and steels herself. And we had this thing that the clock doesn't start, the timer doesn't start the stopwatch until after we know what kind of thing it's the title of. You know, is it a song or is it a movie? And how many words are in it. Then the clock can start. So she takes this big breath, steels herself, gets ready, and she goes. And one of the people on my team yells, "A theatrical performance." And she nods. And then somebody yells, "How many words?" And she sighs again. That's kind of what, you know, came from the people on my team, except there were a lot more expletives there. And I can't tell you this fast enough. I just can't relate it quickly enough. But what went through my mind so fast were three thoughts. 25 words. That's got to be the longest title in the world. I know a really long title, and I blurt out, without even thinking, "The persecution and assassination of Jean-Paul Marat as performed by the inmates of the asylum of Sharon under the direction of the Marquis de Sade." And at that moment, three things happen with incredible simultaneity, which is a really expensive way of saying it at the same time. My team looks at me. They are astonished and amazed. Kim looks at me, and she is surprised and incredibly relieved. And the other team looks at me, and they are shocked and surprised and with total disbelief. And then I look over at Peter, and Peter, he's mouthing something to me. For those of you who need a translation into spoken English, he said, "How did you know?" And I said, "Peter, it's really simple. It's the name of a Judy Collins song. 4 years after the revolution and the old king's execution, 4 years after the Bastille fell, he still recalls that old battle yell. Down with all of the ruling class, throw all the generals out on there." Thank you so much. I will tell you that there is at least one person in the audience who knows the song and might know all the words. We might do a duet later. I would like to have you welcome to the microphone my fellow teller, Gretchen Peterson.
Thank you. We'll see how tall I am compared to Eric. Just a scotch. Well, my story this afternoon has 5 parts. The first part is a familiar nursery rhyme. Mary had a little lamb. I'd like you to sing it with me, all 4 verses. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Everywhere that Mary went, Mary went, Mary went. Everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. It followed her to school one day, school one day, school one day. It followed her to school one day, which was against the rule. It made the children laugh and play, laugh and play, laugh and play. It made the children laugh and play to see the lamb at school. Part 2. Mary on a date with an Englishman. Oh, Mary, it's so wonderful to meet you at last. Here's to many, many more dates. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? Oh, Mary is such a marvelous name. It spills through art, literature, history. I have a marvelous story about the name Mary. We go back to 1930s, to the Cunard shipping line that made those marvelous luxury liners. They had a new liner and they needed a name for it. Now, Cunard, as you know, all of its ships ended in IA, like Britannia and Olympia. That is opposed to the White Star Line, where all of their liners ended in IC, like Baltic and Titanic. And oh, a word about the Titanic. No one does sinking ships better than the British. But back to Cunard, this is the 1930s, and they wanted to name their new luxury liner the Queen Victoria, ended in IA. Now, Victoria, she had died in 1901. So they had to get permission from her grandson, the King George V. So the delegation from Cunard, they showed up at Buckingham Palace and they said, Your Majesty, we wish to name our latest luxury liner after England's greatest queen. Now, George V was not the brightest bulb in the Christmas royal tree, but on that day, he had a little twinkle in his blue eye, and he stroked his Van Dyke beard, and he said, Oh, my wife will be so pleased. Which is how the luxury liner was named the Queen Mary, after his wife, instead of Queen Victoria, after his grandmother. Oh, so Queen Mary, and you are named Mary. And I hope you don't mind, but I've already ordered dinner for us. Garçon, here, there. It's a roasted leg of lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Here's to us, Mary. Part 3. The French Chef. Mary, she has a little lamb. It is magnificent. It is my signature dish. I roast it for 5 hours with the rosemary and a little bit of onion. And on the side, you have the mint sauce and all the scallop potatoes. Oh, they are buttery and crispy on the outside and then just all so billowy on the inside. Well, the Englishman, he ordered it for her, and I bring it to her, and this look come over her face like she in a trance. I don't know what the matter is. But she ate every bite. It was falling off the bone because it was magnifique. Part 4. Mary in therapy. Mary, what brings you here today? Well, doctor, when I was a girl, I had a little lamb. A little lamb. I see. A little lamb. Understood. A little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. Well, how did that make you feel? Well, I was blinded. It was so white. It was like the wool was was pulled over my eyes. Well, everywhere that I went, the lamb was sure to go. And how did that make you feel? Well, smothered! Everywhere I go, there's this lamb behind me. Well, it followed me to school one day. Let me guess, school one day. Yes, school one day. School one day, which was against the rule. How did that make you feel? Well, terrible! I'm a rule follower. And I still can't figure out how the lamb got on the bus. I think maybe it ran behind and it hooked its little hooves on the bumper. I don't know. What happened then? Well, it made the children laugh and play. Laugh and play. Mary, we only have an hour. Laugh and play to see the lamb at school. Well, that sounds like it may have been traumatic. Well, I don't know if it was or not. The story just seems to end right there. And I think that something happened afterwards, something important, but I can't remember it. In fact, I'd kind of forgotten about the lamb, but the other night I went on a date with this blowhard that was just so obnoxious. He had the temerity to order my meal for me, and when it showed up, it was lamb. And he's chortling, "Oh, Mary had a little lamb." And it all started coming back to me, and there's something really significant, but I don't know what it is. Well, Mary, we're going to try a therapy that I call cognitive visualization. I'm going to put you into a light trance. Go back to when you were a girl and see that lamb and talk to it. So breathe in. Breathe out. Mary, are you there? Yes. Can you see the lamb? I can. Ask it if it has anything it needs to tell you. Part 5. The lamb. Mary, Mary, that day I followed you to school. That was the day you fell in love, fell in love, fell in love. That was the day you fell in love with little Susie Q. Mary, you're gay. That's what you've been suppressing. Don't go on any more dates with men. Laugh and play, you're gay. Laugh and play, you're gay. Laugh and play, you're gay. That whole cast and I thank you. And now our next storyteller performer is my friend Rick Huddle.
All right. Well, I love preschools. When I was first graduated from college, I worked at a preschool for a couple of years, and it was my favorite job, really, that I've ever had to this day. Part of it is just, you get so many hugs as a preschool teacher. You know, it's just so much joy and love. You get to play a lot. But what was really meaningful was that you get to see these little beings like grow up. I was there for 2 years, and so I got to see these 3-year-olds turn into 4-year-olds to 5-year-olds. And I got to see how these kids got to learn how to be in the world, how to be with other people, and recognize and realize how their words can, you know, help or hurt, depending on what you say. And when I was 3, I first got to go to a preschool, and my brother was 5. He went along with me, and our mom actually worked at the preschool. It was a pretty big preschool, and they had a nurse there. She was the nurse. And one of the benefits of her being there, one of the perks, was that she could drop us off, you know, early, and they would feed us, and then she could go off to work, and we could have breakfast before school started. So my mom, I'm not sure if this was the first day of school, but I think it may have been, because it was so memorable. Just this first part of walking into the cafeteria there for breakfast, and then there was a lunch lady there with a little, you know, hairnet over her hair, and she welcomed us into the kitchen. And so we walked in, and the kitchen smelled, I think, like every elementary and preschool kitchen smells like. You know, first thing in the morning, it's like this mix of buttered toast and like slightly sour milk. We walked in and saw those huge stainless steel appliances and blenders and ovens. It felt like I was like in the Disney world of kitchens, you know. And she led us to the back where there was this little round table, preschool size, a few plastic tables, chairs around it. And my brother and I, we sat next to each other. And there was, you know, probably 3 or 4 other kids sitting around the table. And in the middle, there was a big tray of buttered toast. And one of the cafeteria workers, she brought us these bowls of cereal. And it was Raisin Bran. I didn't really like Raisin Bran, you know. Frankenberry was my favorite, the strawberry marshmallows. But Raisin Bran had a little sugar on it, so it was acceptable. And it's certainly, you know, 3 years old, first day at preschool, I was not going to complain, you know. I did not want to draw any attention to myself. I just wanted to, like, see what was happening. So I ate my Raisin Bran, and then when I was finished with the cereal, I did what I did at home. I put the spoon to the side, I lifted the bowl up to my lips, and I slurped the milk, all gone. Well, this kid on the other side of the table, he was probably about 5 too, like my brother, and he looked at me and he saw this and he was like, "What's the matter, you baby? You don't know how to use a spoon? You have to slurp your milk out of a bowl?" And man, with his words, I felt like this spotlight was on me, and like all the other eyes of the other kids were staring at me. And he had taken me, with those words, he'd taken me out of this like communal experience of sharing a meal with everybody and made me feel like an outcast. But my brother, you know, he's older and wiser, and he didn't say anything to the other kid, but he leaned over to me and he said, like, "Don't worry about him. He doesn't know that our dad grew up in Japan," which was true. And he doesn't know that people in Japan, everybody in Japan, they slurp out of bowls. Even the emperor slurps out of a bowl in Japan. And with his words, my brother, he made me feel like regal, you know? And I could like see myself, imagine myself on this like ancient wooden throne with red velvet surrounded by samurai. I just kind of sat up straight in my chair there. Then my brother, in this show of solidarity, he put his his spoon to the side, lifted his bowl up to his lips, and slurped his milk, all gone. Thank you. Okay, well, I wanted to sing this one song for you too here before intermission, and this song I sung to my kids when they were babies. My kids were born, they're twins. They were born October 20th, 2016. And, it was our first and only kids, and it's, of course, this, like, miraculous kind of thing. But then right after that, Donald Trump was elected, and as a liberal, it felt just like the world was crashing, It just felt like this weird contradiction of, like, beautiful things happening and, like, the world crashing around. And, the kids, as babies, you have to, like, spend hours, like, trying to put them to sleep. And so I would sing this song. It was one of the few songs I knew all the way through. So I would sing, this is one of those songs. And the refrain, "I'll melt with you," really, like, took on a new meaning for me there. And the song as a whole, I think, too, that no matter what is happening and all of the horrible things that are happening in our lives every day, but with our people, with our community, we can get through. Moving forward, using all my breath. Loving you was never second best. I saw the world crashing round your face, never really knowing it was always mesh and lace. I'll stop the world and melt with you. You've seen the difference, and it's getting better all the time. There's nothing you and I won't do. I'll stop the world and melt with you. Dream of better lives, the kind which never hate, wrapped in a state of imaginary grace. I made a pilgrimage to save this human race, never comprehending the race had long gone by. I'll stop the world and melt with you. We've seen the difference, and it's getting better all the time. There's nothing you and I won't do. I'll stop the world and melt with you. The future's open wide. Join along if you like. I'll stop the world and melt with you. We've seen the difference, and it's getting better all the time. There's nothing you and I won't do. I'll stop the world and melt with you. 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 Thanks. Thanks for joining in. All right. All right, everybody, we're going to take about 10-minute break, and when you come back, we'll have 2 more storytellers. So enjoy, grab a drink or snacks if you like, take a break, and we'll see you in 10.
thank you all for coming. This is just really incredible. I made a few notes for myself so I don't forget to say anything. However, I've just been told, and I need to say this. You need to know we've raised over $900. And it's not so much we, it's you have raised over $900. So welcome back. I hope you're having fun. As you already heard earlier, my name is Eric Foxman. I'm a storyteller, but I also happen to be, as it says here on my piece of paper, I am the treasurer of the Portland Storytellers Guild. Thank you. I'm not writing you a check. I have three things in particular as the treasurer of the Storytellers Guild that I want to pass on. Number one, our incredible appreciation for being here at Artichoke and being able to use this as our venue for our monthly performances. We are so happy that we can be here every month. We are also a nonprofit, and it feels just incredibly proper and right that we are working with another nonprofit. It just is the perfect thing for us. And as a treasurer of a nonprofit, I want you to know, I want you to hear this personally from me, how incredible it feels to see those donations coming in, because it's not just money that comes in. It's really an incredible outpouring. I gotta get my tissue. It's an incredible outpouring of support. It's your confirmation that Artichoke is doing something that's really meaningful and is really appreciated. So thank you so much for that. I want to tell you, because I can see like about half of you, I'm going to ignore most of the people in the front because I know you. I'm going to talk to all of you back there. I want to say a few little things about the Portland Storytellers Guild. And this is not an advertisement for us, but just that you know, we perform here at Cafe Artichoke on the second Saturday of every month. We will not be doing that in January, but from February through June, we will be here at 7 o'clock. Doors open, 7:30 is our performance, second Saturday of every month. We also do some virtual performances. In January, we happen to have 2 virtual performances coming up. One of them will be this coming Saturday. Our next teller will be in that performance. And we have then other performances which are sort of like more focused shows, January through May. And in fact, if you're enjoying yourself today, 5 of today's tellers are going to be showing up in one or more of the performances that we'll be doing between now and June. You can find more info at, it's a really easy one to remember, portlandstorytellers.org. And it's really, really simple. If you can remember what city you're in, and if you can remember what our art form is, you know, it's not like we're jugglers, we're not acrobats, we're not ballerinas and ballet dancers. We are storytellers. So it's Portland Storytellers, it's all one word. And then the hardest part to remember, .org. So if you are ready for more stories, I am going to invite my good buddy and fellow storyteller, Norm Brecky, onto the stage.
So, well, we got a little breathing earlier from Gretchen. So I was thinking that maybe we could do a little breathing. It might make us all feel a little bit better, don't you think? So let's, if you don't want to poke the person in front of you, okay, so don't do that. So you may want to do it up in the air. So here we go. Take a deep breath in, and then a slow breath out. Till it really empties it out. That seemed like work, didn't it? A little bit like work. Let's do it and have a little more fun, shall we? So we're gonna do the deep breath in, and then we're gonna laugh it out. All right. Oh, that felt good. Let's do it again. And this time, really just try to get that out. I mean, and if you can't do that, just go, ho, ho, hee, hee, ha, ha, ho, ho. You have just learned how to do the first maneuver in laughter yoga. It is the science of breathing mixed with the art of laughing for no reason whatsoever. And I should tell you the story of the person that he's made a difference in the world. It's a weird difference, but it's a difference nonetheless. There's Madan Kataria from India. Grew up in a tiny little town. He had a lot of brothers and mostly sisters, and he was the youngest. So he was in the small town, but Madan was smart, really a smart kid, and he was the first one from his large family to go to college. And he became a doctor. And then, he got out of school and he married a beautiful woman. He was doing pretty well, but he had this thing in the back of his head. He wanted to make a difference in the world. So at one point, he bought a piece of land and let homeless people live on his land. And then the idea was he was going to have them work for him in little jobs and stuff, but it didn't work out. None of them did that. So he ended up losing a lot of money, is what one of his sisters said. Another time, he bought a van and started the first mobile medical van in all of Mumbai. And he would go around, and it didn't work out either. Then he started writing for a journal, and he was writing for this journal, and he started the Indian version of it, and he would translate things and so that the doctors in India would be able to get some information, and he loved to research, and he'd write an article every month himself, and he was in Mumbai, and he looked at his wife one day, and he had tried all these things, and he said, "Man, I'm not very happy." And his wife, she agreed she wasn't very happy either. And she goes, "What are we going to do?" And I know we need to change something. They already did meditation. They did yoga. He was a yoga instructor as well. And so he didn't know what to do. So he woke up in the middle of the night with an idea. He put up signs. He goes, "We're going to have a laughter club." And his wife said, "Oh." Okay. And so he said, yeah. And he put up a bunch of signs around this one park in Mumbai, and then showed up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and people came. Well, 3 people came, and him and his wife. And then they just started telling jokes to each other. And they would tell jokes, and they would laugh, and people would come by. "What are you doing?" "Oh, we're telling jokes." "Oh, In 1 week, he was up to 40, almost 50 people. He was so happy. It was working out great, except the jokes were getting worse. I mean, he had all these people that could tell jokes, but they were getting kind of put downs to other people, or they took it, or they were raunchy jokes. And after the 7th meeting of this daily half-hour laughter club, he had some of his members those 3 that had started with him, and a few that were in the next couple of days, said, "We're not coming anymore." He said, "No, you got to keep coming." He goes, "No, we don't like these kind of jokes and stuff. It's mean. This is supposed to be a nice thing." He said, "Don't come back tomorrow. I will have your solution." And he went home. And he did not have a solution. He had no ideas. So he just started looking in journals, in different things, different studies of different things. And finally, in the back of this one big, thick book of journal articles, he found it. There was a study that discovered that fake laughter and real laughter, your brain cannot tell the difference. It changed everything. So he went back the next day and he goes, we're not going to laugh. We're just going to breathe and laugh. And they were like, uh-huh. But they started to do it. He would just go, take a deep breath in. His favorite one, he always does this, is the milkshake. And you go, okay, everybody take it. And they go, It's dumb, but it's fun. He says part of it is going back to being a child, because they didn't need a reason to laugh. They just laugh. You watch them on the playground, little kids, they're just laughing. We need to go back to that. And the body does not know the difference. Well, now he could cite about 100 different studies that prove what he's doing is making a difference. And now he's got over 100 countries and thousands, like 10,000 free laughter clubs in parks all over the world. Somebody who made a difference. It's an amazing thing. Now you need to do one more laugh. This is the 1 yard laughter from one of those three guys. He had spent his entire life in the selling material, fabric, and they didn't measure back then. This was a meter. And if you were a short guy, you got less from the guy. So he was. He said a tall man. So this was their thing. Makes no sense, but and when you're around other people that are laughing, next thing you know, it's real laughter. If you have a circle of these people doing it. Now there's a guy, Ali, he just says, how much fun do we want to have? Great guy, Ali. Anyway. So that is just my little story of somebody who made a difference in the world, I think. Dr. Madan Guittari. If you want to know more about it, then you can hear that. I'll talk to you after the show. Or my wife could tell you after the show. Ann is a great laugher. Great laugher. But she does start out every session with ha, 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 ho, 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 ho. And I love it. I love that. And next thing you know, it sounds like Rick over here. All right. Well, if I can remember all the words, I will sing you this song that I wrote. I wrote this song. Last time I did it was last summer. And we'll see if I can do it. Now, this, you need to know a little story to get this. Now, I was trying to write a song for Folklife at the time. And I thought, well, if I had some sort of riddle or something, or a joke I could base it on. And so there was, and I was also doing research as a teacher for riddles, because little kids, I was a kindergarten teacher, and they don't get riddles, which is kind of fun, and jokes. So you start to kind of teach them how to get a riddle. So this was too sophisticated for them, but I liked it. So I read this riddle, and it said, if it takes 6 strong men 6 days to dig a hole, how long would it take you to dig half a hole? It's a riddle, right? And the answer is, well, almost no time at all, because the minute you have dug any kind of hole, it's a hole. Right? The minute you've dug some more, it's a hole. So to me, instead of just a joke or something, I thought that's beautiful. Because no matter what, if you run out of things to do, you could always dig a hole. And it won't take you any time at all. You've done something. There was a little guy on a football team that I coached, and he would, when he wasn't playing, he would dig holes in the field. But he was doing something, right? Because he was digging holes. And it didn't matter if it was only half as deep as he thought it should be. It was a hole, and he needed to cover it up quickly before somebody broke a leg. All right, so, and it has a chorus. It goes like this. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. And then the other half is, dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. You guys are going to be great. And I say that about 1,000,000 times in this song. No, not that many, but it's a lot. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. They say it takes strict strong men 6 days to dig a hole. How long will it take you to dig me half a hole? 'Cause almost everything you know, it starts from nothing big. When you're out of things to do, well, you might as well just dig. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. Secret to a rich life is start, commence, begin. You have to have been something big to be a great has-been. You cannot build a future on what you say you'll do. When all is said and done, my friend, well, action makes it true. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. Now here's the break. Mr. Campbell says to follow your own bliss. Doors will open up for you and happiness can't miss. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with just one step. Secret key to being great is stepping with some pep. You can't make a new beginning, no use pretending. But anyone can start from now to make a new ending. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, brother, dig me half a hole. Dig me half a hole, sister, dig me half a hole. Thank you. Now, I did say that I was a kindergarten teacher, right? I did mention that. And you can get up, it's fine. And we would just like to say that today's, the second part of this show is brought to you by the color burnt orange. Barb Bankhauser.
Thank you. It's nice to have it not right on my forehead. So I just thinking about Norm's story about somebody who wants to make a difference in the world. My story is about somebody who makes a difference in the world simply by who they are and what they bring to their day. There was an old woman. She lived in this little cottage on the outskirts of a village called Headley. Now, you might look at this cottage and think there's not much to it. But you know, it had just what this old woman needed and just what she wanted, and it made her very happy. Now, she didn't have much. She made her way in the world by going into the village each day, and she would run errands for the wives there that lived there, or farm wives. She'd look after the kids, do a little cooking, cleaning, whatever to, hold body and soul together. And she would usually get enough for her noonday meal and then a little extra so she could buy some bread and cheese to take home with her for dinner that night. Now, each day before she left her cottage, she would go out to her wood pile and she'd get some kindling and some pine cones and she'd lay them in her little fireplace, so when she came home, she'd have a nice fire to warm herself by. Well, she would go into Headley, and the thing that this village you should know about, they had a boogie, a hobgoblin. They called it the Headley Coo because it lived in Headley, and it was a hobgoblin. And Coo was the name for hobgoblins. And, well, what this hobgoblin did, this Coo, was if you hung your sheets out in the morning and came back in the afternoon and they were splattered with mud, it was the Headley Coo. If the gates were left open and the pigs got out, it was the Headley Coo. If your cows went dry and stopped giving milk, it was the Headley Coo. But the worst thing the Headley Coo did that drove everyone crazy is it was a shapeshifter and would wait until dark and would wait until somebody came out of the pub, say, or someplace was on their way home, and it would jump out at them and scare them, and they would run terrified down the road, and it would be followed by the raucous laughter of this Headley Coo. Well, now the women who the old woman worked for, they cared for her, and they wanted to make sure she was safe, and so they always made sure she left in time for her home each evening, well before the Headley Coo would be out and about. Well, one summer evening, she got a little late start, and she was headed home just at dusk. And as she walked along the road, she saw something in the road up ahead of her, and she got closer to it, and she got up to it, and it was a big black metal pot with 3 little legs and a handle and a lid, and well, she looked at it and she walked all around it. It was a lovely pot. It was like, she thought, who would leave a pot like that in the middle of the road? Well, it's a lovely pot. She looked all around the fields, but there was nobody around. Oh, she said, well, it'd be a perfect pot to hold things if I had anything that needed to be held, but mayhaps it has a hole in it. I'll just check and see. And so she went over and she reached down. She lifted the lid. It was filled with gold coins. Oh, she said, oh, aren't I the lucky one? Look at all those gold coins. Well, who could have left a pot full of gold coins here on the road? Well, there was no one around, so she thought, well, now, a pot full of gold coins is going to weigh a bit, and she had to figure out how to get it home. So she took her shawl off, and she wrapped it around the pot, and she began to drag it down the road. And she was walking and dragging, and she'd gone a ways, and, well, there was beads of sweat starting on her forehead, and she stopped to rest a bit. I mean, she was an older woman. And she looked back at it, and she thought, I'll just take another look at it. And she went and she opened her shawl, and, well, it wasn't a pot at all now. Oh, no, it was a big lump of silver. Oh, silver, a lump of silver. Oh, aren't I the lucky one? How did it know I'd be worrying all the time about that gold and what I would do with those gold coins and how easy they are to lose? And, but a lump of silver, well, you can just always, cut off little bits of it and take it in and change it for money and buy things with. Oh, silver, this is so much easier to handle than a pot full of gold coins. Oh, I am the lucky one. She wrapped her shawl around it again, and she continued to drag it down the road, and she dragged it down the road, and she dragged it down the road, and now the sweat was kind of running down her temples, and she stopped, and well, she just thought she'd take another look at that lump of silver, and she opened her shawl, and, well, it was a big lump of iron. Iron? What a perfect thing to have around the house. I mean, she would lose sleep, all kinds of sleep, worrying about the gold coins and the silver, that somebody'd come in and break into her house trying to steal it. But a lump of iron, now there was something. You could sell it for pennies, and it's a fine thing to have around your house. Well, she'd be the luckiest one. Oh, yes. So she wrapped her shawl around it again, and she continued to drag it down the road and dragged it down the road, and she finally got to her gate, and she stopped, and she thought, well, she took her shawl off, and, well, it wasn't a lump of iron anymore at all. It was a big stone. Well, how did it know I've been looking for something to hold my door open all this time? Aren't I the lucky one? Oh. So she reached down to pick up the stone to drag it into her house to see how it was going to look in the corner of her house. And all of a sudden, it gave a great lurch, and these 4 legs shot out, and a tail and a horse head came up, and big ears with red eyes and smoke coming out of its nostrils, and it bucked and kicked and stomped around the road in front of her, and the old woman stood there looking at it. Oh, she said, I, the lucky one. And the horse stopped and looked at her and said, "You're not afraid?" She said, "Oh, no. I mean, I've always wanted to see what the Headley Coo looked like, and there you are, and me making so friendly with it. No, I'm not afraid at all. What a delight to see the Headley Coo in person." And she said, "Besides, there's no harm done. I've still got my bread and cheese." And she turned to go into her house. She opened the gate, and she started to walk through, and she stopped, and she looked back. And where that horse had been a moment ago, now there was a small man with a white beard. He was as brown as a russet apple, and he was clutching his hat in his hand and kind of toeing the dirt with his boot. Well, he looked kind of lonely, and so the old woman said, "You know, I haven't much, but you're welcome to come in and have supper with me if you'd like." "Well, I don't mind if I do," said the Headley Coo. And he came right into her house, and he sat down at her table, and she brought out her bread and cheese, and they started to eat. And before long, there was some lovely brown boiled eggs and some crumpets to go with a pot of tea that appeared. And after they'd eaten a while, they sat down, and the old woman lit her fire, and they sat in front of the fire, and the Headley Coo regaled her with tales of the exploits and the pranks he'd pulled, and the old woman laughed until the tears rolled down her cheeks. She said, "I don't know when I've had an evening pass so fast. It's been just a delight." Well, after that little man began to show up on a pretty regular basis at her table. And the old woman never said much about the fact that her woodpile never went down, and her cupboards were always full of bread and cheese and eggs. And when she went to town and the folks complained about the Headley Coo, she'd just listen and smile and say, "Oh, you know, he's not so bad. He just likes to kick up his heels a bit. That he do." Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for supporting Artichoke Music, and I want to invite the rest of the tellers to come back up and take a final bow with me.
You know, part of the miracle of this is that the first idea we could do a show was just 9 days ago. So to have all this happen in 9 days, thank you all so much. Thank you all.